All right, so it looks like it's 11:01, so we'll get started. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of OSI, I thank you for joining us today, spending some of your quality time to learn about migrating to the Oracle ERP Cloud for EBS users. Now, my name is Doug, Solutions Manager with OSI in the Pacific Northwest. And I'll cast today along with Dilbert Mukherjee, our subject matter expert. Dilbert is our Vice President of Enterprise Applications with extensive experience implementing, managing, and consulting with customers that use ERP applications to manage and improve their business. Let's discuss our agenda and just a few housekeeping items for today's webcast, and then we'll get into the meat. So today we're going to cover a variety of specifics on moving to Oracle, but they can all roll up to three key areas. Where do you want to start in moving to the ERP Cloud? We're going to go over the specifics on it. We all know the high-level promise sounds great, but the devil is in the details. And finally, we're going to go into a specific example to provide clarity, make sure everyone's very clear on how to exactly go about moving onto the ERP Cloud successfully. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some question and answers at the end. So if you have any questions, please type them into our chat on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and we'll be answering those questions at the end of the webinar. So once the questions, type them in. We will be reviewing and talking through them at the end of the webinar. So why would you, or why should you be listening to? Well, we're a global professional services firm with about 1,400 employees, and we are an Oracle Platinum partner. We work with a variety of technologies, and today you're going to Oracle Applications Group focused on Oracle Cloud Applications and EBS solutions. What you are about to hear in today's webcast comes from the real world experience related over the years. So let's set the scene here. The cloud is often described in vague but extraordinarily promising ways. And unlike our Dilbert comic strip here, our goal today is to avoid the high-level jargon and get into the details. So in just a second here, we'll dive into exactly what it takes to move your business successfully into the Oracle Cloud. Dilbert, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through great.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. For those of you that don't know me, which is probably almost all of you on this call, I'm the Dilbert in the center, the guy talking about the platform. Just kidding. So today's topic, as Doug laid out, is how do we move from Oracle EBS to ERP Cloud. I'm pretty sure almost everyone on this call has been pinged endlessly by Oracle over the last few months, if not a couple of years, on replacing their EBS applitions with the ERP Cloud applications. So there are multiple approaches, as you know, and Oracle also talks about these. Either retire and replace your EBS applications, replace the modules with ERP Cloud, or take specific cloud application modules and integrate them with the EBS applications. And we'll be talking about both of these approaches during our presentation today. So as Doug said, as I go through this presentation, I'm pretty sure there'll be questions that pop up. Please keep noting them and sending them across to him. And at the end of the presentation, I'll address all of those questions as they come in. So the promise of the cloud. Everyone on this call, as you probably know, the cloud is supposed to be the promised holy grail for all of our IT woes. It provides a low-cost, use-as-you-go kind of solution. It's supposed to be painless and pain-free totally. It would be modern because you would not be on a release that is now 2 years old because you haven't done your roll-up patches. And it would obviously be zero maintenance. There would be nothing to do. It would run on its own. And we can all use our Indiana Jones hats to then go off on some wild adventure while the cloud takes care of itself. So that's the holy grail. That's where is the promised land that we have all been promised and we all aspire to. The promised land is essentially laid out here. This is Oracle's Cloud Application Suite. Again, you may have seen this diagram in different forms in different places, and it's been added to over the last couple of years. Oracle's cloud applications the modules were introduced gradually. The financial and procurement modules up here actually came in earliest in the cloud suite. The Fusion applications, as they were known at one time, and now Oracle ERP Cloud. They came in the earliest, and they are by far the most mature. HCM followed by project portfolio management, and the latest additions have been the whole supply chain management suite, which came in with release 11, starting with order entry, inventory, shipping, manufacturing, and now there's warehousing as well. So there has been a gradual movement in building up these cloud applications from Oracle's end, and they have been around for different points in time. So with all of these movements happening, it's a pretty dynamic space. I mean, even as we speak, there may be a couple of modules being added and being released by Oracle through white papers. So given all of the movement in that space, the questions that remain are what I call the existential questions on moving from on-prem to the cloud. The first question that springs to everyone's mind that I keep getting asked by most customers that I talk to is it feasible? And is it something that they should be doing? Is it possible to do? What's involved in actually moving from ERP to the cloud? Is it a re-implementation? Is it just an upgrade type deal? Is it a migration? Does it happen through scripts? And then, of course, what is different? How does it impact our business? So all of it boiling down to basically two questions. Should we do this migration? Is it worth the while and worth the risk, if any? And when do we do it? So these are questions that we get asked constantly, and that's what I thought we should address. Just like any other question, there are no single line answers. So hence this presentation, to try and walk through all of the issues and concerns in this whole suite of applications. So let's look at a typical EBS environment. A typical EBS environment, we obviously have the Oracle e-business suite with the different modules, depending on which modules that are being used at your end. But then on top of that, there are all kinds of other applications that are talking to Oracle. You would have payment gateways, EDI connectivity, maybe some tax software like Vertex, sometimes maybe even a Salesforce CRM type deal, all talking to. So there are cloud applications that are talking to your on-prem EBS. There are on-prem external and custom applications that are there. So there could be custom developed extensions. There could be like an external data warehouse. There could be other kinds of BI and OBIE, excuse me, reporting. So there are a lot of discoverer reports. Sometimes people have external data warehouses, Cognos data warehouses being fed from EBS. And then on EBS itself, over the years, we have done our personalizations, custom hooks, alerts, and workflows. So it's a pretty complex environment that we are now trying to take and say, does it fit to the cloud? And this is what we have to deal with anytime we think of moving to the cloud. So the considerations and questions that then come up is the one that is the topmost in everyone's mind is the readiness. How ready is the ERP cloud to be able to accept all of these EBS with all its complexities? The second is, do we just go cold turkey, that is just go to the cloud, switch off all of our EBS modules, or do we go with a hybrid solution and migrate some applications to some modules to the cloud and leave the others on-prem? What happens to our customizations? How do we move our customizations across? What happens to the interfaces? How do those work? what happens to our current reporting and data warehouse issues, data warehouses that we are running externally. What about data conversion? Is that automatic, and how much data do we need to convert? How much data will convert on its own? How much has to be manipulated? All of that. And then finally, the question that is there with every EBS customer that is used to writing queries, what kind of database access do we now get if we move to the ERP cloud applications? And maybe I'm not even listing down a lot of concerns that are also there, but these are the topmost concerns that hit us the moment we want to talk about moving to ERP cloud. So as I said, with all of this, there are basically two approaches: moving out totally to the cloud, or integrating the certain cloud modules with EBS. And I want to walk through the issues and concerns and approaches around both these options. So coming on to the first option, moving off EBS onto the ERP cloud, which I call retire and replace. So the ERP cloud, there are a lot of good things about the ERP cloud. So I call it what's to like. Obviously, the money is, you pay based on users, you pay based on usage. There is the lock-in periods are smaller based on your licensing with Oracle, so they are way cheaper than EBS, even to maintain and keep running. Infrastructure costs are nil. They are built into the licensing because it runs on Oracle hardware. The support costs are low, and plus there is ongoing support you don't have to worry about database managers or DBAs that you need to support the application. The one thing we have found in implementing cloud is the business engagement is higher. It's way higher than when we implement EBS. For whatever reasons, whenever you're implementing cloud, the business users are more engaged, and they are more involved in the implementation. The technology is the latest. You're always on the latest release. Whether you like it or not, you're being upgraded to the latest release. And you don't have to worry about version management for the software. Oracle takes care of it. They make sure that you have to move to the latest release. So I don't know if there's anyone in this group here that's on 11i. That will never happen, right? You would never be on a release that is 6 or 8 years old. So these are all the positives. Where the challenges come in moving to the cloud is you need to review all of your customizations because you need to move to a minimal customization out of the box application model. That's the way the world is moving. So we have to realistically look at a world where we, for want of a better word, have to ditch our customizations or pare them down significantly and move to more of an out-of-box application model, which means we may need to re-engineer business processes to better fit the way they have been set up in the application. The security model is enforced. I know all of us want to do segregation of duties, whether we are public or not. We like the SOD compliance, but in EBS environments, we haven't always seen that being followed. With the cloud, it is almost enforced in the way the security model is set up, which means when you move from EBS to ERP cloud, you may have to restructure your security model as well. The custom reporting needs to undergo changes. There are multiple options for reporting that I'll walk through, but if you are using Discoverer today, for example, that definitely needs to get restructured. And then the historical data conversion. That's one challenge, and which makes us think about how much of historical data do we really need, and how do we use that and store that. As with any ERP application, moving to any new ERP application, historical data for closed transactions on the subledgers, it's always a challenge getting them across. So talking a little bit about the cloud solution, For those of you that have followed Oracle's evolution in this space, Oracle had EBS as the original ERP solution, and then over the years they acquired a bunch of other applications. And then they had middleware called Fusion that they developed as Fusion middleware. What they then did was put together all of these applications into an application called Fusion applications, which was the Fusion ERP, which then was rebadged as the cloud application. So Fusion is no longer being sold on-prem, it is only sold on the cloud. The reason for bringing up this model, this picture here, is that even though it has the components from all of these applications in Fusion, EBS is by far the largest base there. And this is my opinion. Oracle has not officially said this anywhere, but when I work with the cloud applications, what I find is that it is based more on EBS than on anything else. And that is important to note, because when we move from EBS to an ERP cloud, that actually works to our advantage. A lot of the underlying setups, data structures, the way things are conceptualized is very EBS-like. It makes user adoption much easier. It makes migrating setups much easier, understanding the application much easier. All of that becomes pretty seamless for an existing EBS customer, which I guess most of you on this call already are. So the first step, you decide to go to the cloud, configuring the application. To me, that's the easiest part of the whole thing, mainly because what I just said about the cloud being the Fusion application, or the cloud application being based on EBS. So the first thing that has changed a little is the security model. So that is one important thing to remember, and that we need to map. The cloud has users just like EBS, but then they have data roles, abstract roles, job roles, duty roles. There are multiple roles and it's almost like a user security matrix that can be configured. Whereas in EBS, it was a pretty simple, flat security structure with responsibilities and menus. So every user had certain responsibilities, every responsibility had certain menus. And if you were assigned a responsibility, you could pretty much do anything that responsibility was able to do. In the cloud, it gets more granular, because you can actually have matrices, and you can make them as complex as you like. And there are some standard segregation of duties that it enforces within the application. So once you have mapped the security, you come to the easier part of it, part of replicating the setups. The setups are pretty straightforward. You have flex fields in the cloud. In fact, you have extensible flex fields now. Unlike in EBS, you have a lot more flex fields than you have in EBS. So that is useful. You have module parameters, which is equivalent to profile options, and then you have structures, which is equivalent to the segments. And you can go in and replicate the setups almost at the back end. We have done a couple of projects where we did not even have to involve any user participation in understanding the EBS application and in setting up the cloud ERP the way the EBS is set up. So as long as there is no business restructuring being done as part of this migration to the cloud, you don't need any user participation in replicating the setups. It has to be done manually. There is no automated path to move from EBS setups to the cloud, but it is pretty easy to do if you understand your EBS and if you know cloud. Data conversion, that's where some of our challenges come. There are a couple of things. The cloud has a lot more, a lot better, I would say, user interfaces for migrating data as compared to EBS. Where EBS had interface tables and you used a data loader or interface tables to load data, the cloud basically comes with Excel templates and also gives you a file-based data import option. So it's as easy as populating an Excel template and running a program and uploading the data. Within the cloud, there are also some ADF services. You can use ADF, which would do things like what the data loader did. You could write ADF services to actually go and run through the screens, just like a data loader did. And the ADF DI and the file-based imports are basically the easiest way for bringing in data, and you can bring in everything. You can get in daily rates, budget balances, supplier bank accounts, open AP invoices. All of that can come in through file-based imports. Where the challenges come up is there is no easy automated route for converting historical data. For example, closed orders, closed invoices. So it's the same challenges that you may have faced when you moved from your earlier legacy ERP to EBS, if you have done that. Sales orders, or let's say if you are used to looking at sales order history for the last 3 years, sales orders for a customer out of your transaction tables, you moving across closed sales orders is always a challenge in the way that you would like to. There are different ways to do it by moving them as $0 orders, just have the order number and the fields with $0 and no shipment lines, for example, and keeping the dates in descriptive flex fields. So you can do things like that, but depending on how critical that information is to you, you have to have a strategy around what do you do with the historical data, how much of it do you move to transactional tables, and how much of it do you move to like a BI, any BI external application that you are using that you can use for querying. Most of the time we recommend having a strategy in place to store and access historical data in external applications because that makes it easier and it's much cleaner. And in this process, many a times we have started with discussions where customers say, oh, I need all my historical data, and then when you start getting into the details on the term all, it's mostly related to GL, which is not a problem. You can get historical GL transactions how many ever years you want. On the subledger side, it's more of they want to know the totals of what has been invoiced by a supplier over the last 5 years. And they are more BI-like type questions. They don't need to know each and every individual PO. And most of the time we have been able to satisfy the requirements by having a strategy to have an external data source populated with this data and accessible through reports using OTBI in the cloud. So after data conversion, the other concern that props up is customizations and extensions. Now, my first line over there says it all. I mean, the thing to do with the cloud is avoid customizations and extensions as much as possible, or I would say avoid it all the time. Many times that's not feasible depending on the business needs, and I'll talk through some of that in later. But assuming you take an approach where you want to get rid of all customizations, the thing to do would be to look at built-in cloud applications functionality. Many a times, some of the things for which you have customizations built, we could find equivalent functionality in the cloud. For example, the way orders are orchestrated or the way pricing structures are set up. Just because of the limitations in EBS around workflow, maybe there was some custom extensions or personalizations working there, which maybe we can work around by using existing cloud functionality where that is better. The other thing to do is reviewing business processes. I think once you look at the cost of building customizations to the cloud and the cost of maintaining those customizations and review it vis-a-vis using an existing business process defined in the application, a standard business process, it comes down to a cost-benefit analysis, and people usually go towards modifying an existing business process unless where it's not feasible at all. So reviewing and changing the business processes is highly recommended rather than writing customizations. The thing to remember is Oracle has quarterly upgrade cycles, and Oracle will not commit to your customizations not getting screwed up when the upgrades come in. The upgrades are pretty major upgrades, especially towards the early part of their product maturity. There are lots of things that get fixed, new functionality that gets introduced. Even if you decide that you do not need or want that upgrade, you have no option. It just gets pushed on a certain date every quarter. And soon some of the instances are going into monthly cycles. So there will be an upgrade pushed every month. And every custom piece that is written has to go through regression testing cycle before before the upgrade. So that's an additional effort and cost that needs to be factored in addition to just the cost of developing and testing the customization in the first place. So as I said again, the first rule would be to avoid it. Now, if you had to do it, I mean, I have customers that understand all that, but there are ways that they run their business that they absolutely need something that is not available out of the box. If you had to do it, Fusion Applications does provide you a bunch of things you can do from your end for these. You can do page and branding customizations, which is pretty standard, and that is done in many environments. You can customize existing objects, on the screen that you see. There are custom workflows that you can write, so you can using BPEL, so you can do business process customization. Security, as I said, it can be structured the way you want, so you can customize your security. The business intelligence is OTBI, basically your reporting. So there is all of your Discoverer reporting, for instance, you can replicate in OTBI, and you can customize the help, which I think is important because the people, when they start using the cloud applications, I've seen them referring help a lot. And depending on what you want people to enter into the various fields within the form at your site, in your instance, you can update your help accordingly and customize that, and that is available to be done by site. So it gives you a bunch of tools for all of these things that I talked about. There are page composers and application composers, business process composers. The custom formats for checks and POs, they are done through BI Publisher. So those of you that use BI Publisher on EBS, that's something that's entirely transferable. And then there are the flex fields that allow you your standard things like you could do on EBS. And reports and analytics, as I said, comes with OTBI. So there are the tools available. I would only again exhort you to apply a lot of caution, and there has to be a lot of justification to do any extensions before you decide to get into that. Only because every extension has to be regression tested during the upgrade cycle. So the other, so what I talked about is actually customizing the application or personalizing the application. We have customers that actually need external customization, things for which you would develop like a custom form within Oracle and have it access the Oracle tables in EBS. So these are, I would say, an even bigger no-no, something to avoid. If they are providing mission critical functionality and you don't have out of box to replace that, this is how we have done it before. So you have this is an example where we used the SOA framework, this Oracle's SOA middleware, to essentially build an extension for managing patient details and expense details for a customer. So it was integrating with the cloud ERP, which had the financials in it, and it was also integrating custom websites. So all of this was done through SOA. These applications were external applications, and they were built using ADF, and it works pretty seamlessly. but it is not an easy thing to maintain. Every time there are upgrades happening to this thing, you have to pretty much test everything, make sure it all works fine. So the next thing is reporting. This is another one where there is a lot of custom stuff generally built in most companies. As we all know, EBS reporting was pretty sparse and not pretty at all. So just by necessity, we have all developed a bunch of custom reports. We have discoverer reports usually. There could be like Cognos data warehouses that people are using. There could be other data warehouse applications that people are using. And then there are just the regular PL SQL reports coming out of PL SQL and coming out with BI Publisher. Now, given that on the cloud, you are essentially operating with a pre-built framework, I think Oracle's done a pretty decent job in providing a reporting framework that can be used, but can be customized by the user to get the kind of reports they need. So basically, when you buy the cloud software, whatever modules you buy, it comes with the Business Intelligence Publisher and the Transactional Business Intelligence, OTBI. And both of these are essentially, the Business Intelligence Publisher is BI Publisher, which is for all of your external facing documents. The OTBI is essentially the OBIE framework. For those of you that use OBIE in your current instances, this would be very familiar to you. It comes with a pre-built business area for each module. So the OTBI for that module comes along with the module when you own that module on the cloud, and it allows you to build custom reports for it. There is also an enterprise edition for OTBI coming up, and that's in the future roadmap. It's not available right now, and it is supposed to be better, a level higher than just a module-based OTBI working across modules. But till now, most of our customers, we have been able to meet discoverer requirements using the transactional business intelligence working off of the transactional tables. So on the reporting side, again, just like you need to have a strategy in place for your historical data conversion, you need to also have a strategy in place for your reporting. How much of your reporting are you going to replace with OTBI reports, and how much of your reporting are you going to keep in place with when you have external data marts or external data warehouses? You can just keep feeding those by pulling it out with queries that get developed out of the cloud environment. So that is again something that needs to be assessed and have a strategy in place before you move. Before you decide to move to the cloud. So going this big bang approach, the implementation considerations, sort of summarizing all the things that I said, the EBS setups can be replicated manually in the cloud. It's pretty easy to do. This migration, it doesn't invade on business users' time. As long as you're not making any structural changes, there is no new requirement analysis needed, and everything you can set up on current. You can take current processes in the EBS and set them out on the ERP Cloud. The key activity where you need to spend most of your time and plan for most of your time is user training. The cloud requires a lot more user participation in the whole process, so it definitely. User training is key. Those of you who have seen cloud demos, if you have, it looks different. It doesn't look like EBS. The front end is entirely different. So even though the underlying data structures are similar, the front end is totally new. So this probably takes up most of our time, the user training. Keep in mind that reporting will need to be redesigned, and anything you do, always remember the monthly and quarterly upgrades. So in terms of timeline, obviously it varies from account to account. It will vary based on your footprint. It will vary based on the number of users, the number of customizations that have to be revamped. So all of that. But given that, just wanted to throw in an example timeline over there, so that you have an idea. This is for a mid-size EBS customer, about a $200 million company. The footprint that we migrated was the financials and expense procurement. And the whole project took us to UAT about less than 3 months. As you can see, the application mapping and application configuration was done in 4 weeks, and we then went into the CRP cycles. This whole cycle, starting from CRP to user training, that is from week 5 to week 9, you can say we're all user training. It's more of user training in addition to testing. And we were ready for UAT in about 3 months. And then, of course, the cutover needs to be planned for the actual data conversion. This customer has not yet gone live. They have done the UAT, and they're waiting for the right time to do the cutover and then go live. So this is just an example timeline. Just wanted to compare this. If you compare this against trying to implement a new ERP, let's say you decided to go to SAP tomorrow and wanted to move from EBS to SAP, I'm pretty sure this would be more like 11 months instead of 11 weeks. So that's just to throw it out there to give you a scale of what we are looking at when we look at these migrations. Now the next approach, what I call improve, or the hybrid model. And this has been pretty popular with many of our customers. This is the easier approach where you sort of dip your toe in the water without having to jump in. And you can take any module that you're planning to be on-prem, and depending on how integrated it needs to be with on-prem, you could have that in the cloud and have it integrated to the cloud. That gives you a flavor of the cloud, gives you the integration challenges without having to risk moving everything to the cloud from EBS. So an example of this hybrid model we've done with one of our customers is where they are using on-prem EBS, and we have implemented GTM and CPQ in the cloud. And the GTM and CPQ talk to each other. They are also integrated with the EBS environments, and all of this happening as point-to-point integrations. So this same example could also be restructured through SOA. The example where we have done it, we did a point-to-point, but it could also happen through SOA, or if you decide to go with SOA in the cloud, then through what Oracle calls ICS, Integration Cloud Suite, and that is SOA in the cloud. And you could have that same thing. So the point I wanted to make between these two slides is you could either have a point-to-point model or a SOA model. It does not matter. The applications will support both these models. So the opportunities and challenges with this approach is you need to revamp your integration infrastructure, right? So if you decided to go the ICS route, then you may have to look at what middleware you're using, or if you're not using any middleware, then to have middleware if needed. The other thing that you need to look at is what is the existing entity integration with EBS. Even though all the applications are owned by Oracle, they are all at different levels of pre-built integration availability. So an example would be, GTM. When we did the GTM implementation to EBS, you would expect item integration to be out of the box, supplier integration to be out of the box, which it is, but it always integrates everything, and the customer did not want to integrate everything all the time, and there were no options available within Oracle's out-of-box integration to limit the items of the suppliers being integrated with GTM. So we had to write our own point-to-point integration for that. So those are some things that you need to be aware of before you decide to go with the cloud. The other thing is the cost. Getting a cloud module in is a low risk option and helps you test the waters before you decide to jump in. But at the same time, while you're doing that, you're also paying for your EBS. You're not retiring your EBS application, so you end up paying your on-prem fees as well as your cloud fees. So that cost justification, if that is driving your business justification, that is not available to you. So that's something to keep in mind. So the implementation considerations, as I mentioned, existing and available out-of-box integration, that's one thing to consider. The performance is also important. For example, if you decide to do warehouse management, Oracle has a pretty neat cloud warehouse management product now out recently. Now, if you decide to do warehouse management in the cloud where all of your procurement and shipping and everything is on EBS on-prem, depending on your volume of transactions being done on a daily basis, depending on the number of shipments and number of receipts, that may or may not be a viable option. So that is something that you should look at. Performance is a key factor there, because every transaction will hit both on-prem and the cloud. And then there is the master data synchronization question. I mean, do you want to keep all of your master data, having to synchronize all of your master data? How much of your master data do you need to synchronize, and how often are those updates? Again, that affects performance. So I think these three I would consider to be the major implementation considerations before you, in addition to cost, of course, before you decide to go down the hybrid route. So in summary, for EBS to ERP Cloud, you need to map and gap the functionality being used. The key thing is setting the expectation on business process change. Whenever executive teams or executives in the company are approving this project, they need to be sold and set on the expectations and the benefits around this whole project. We need to set expectations that the reporting strategy can change, the historical data will be handled differently, the security profiles that need to be changed, and of course, testing is key. Just this is, goes without saying for as with any migration, testing is really key. Existing business processes need to be tested through and through. We cannot assume that just because they worked on EBS, they will work seamlessly in the cloud. It's just an assumption you shouldn't make. So how do you approach an EBS to ERP cloud project? What would we do? So the first thing we would do is, come in and if somebody said they wanted to look at moving to the cloud, we would make a list of mandated application changes, things that will change on the application, like security profiles as an example, or the way the historical data changes or the reporting changes. So we would make a list of those application changes and analyze the impact of those changes for the whole suite of that you're using on EBS on the company, on the financial, operational, and technical side. Make a risk versus benefits analysis, and also how do you support these cloud applications? What is the impact on the support later? We would use predefined data templates and data migration strategies. Having done this before, we know we have the tools available to us that are predefined and automated in many cases. And we would also focus on developing comprehensive test scenarios. I think these are the first top 4 things you need to do before you, when you approach the project. And then the thing to do is an assessment. We do have an assessment service that helps you plan this whole EBS to ERP cloud migration. Today, a lot of companies looking for this are just stuck because they don't know how to approach it and how much it would cost, and what is the impact on the timeline, what is the impact on the business. So we actually have a process that, knowing both sides of the river, we actually know how to cross the river, what is involved in crossing the river, and we help you identify what would be the scope of the migration and how do you map your existing EBS functionality that you are using to the cloud. And we do this using a team that is both that are both EBS experts as well as cloud experts. And it could be the size of the team would obviously depend on the size of your instance and the number of users that we are dealing with. But we would involve solution architects and also ADF experts there in case we are looking at migrating some of the customizations. So the whole objective of doing the assessment, I would recommend anyone thinking of this, whether you use OSI or not, the first thing you should do is go in and do an assessment before making any decisions on how big your cloud migration project should be, whether you should be hybrid or whether it should be retire and replace kind of project. And when we do the assessment to be successful, you should come out with a project timeline, an analysis of your customizations, come out with a resource plan, a budgetary estimate, and exactly know which functionality in EBS that you are using that may not be available in the cloud. I think that is what ultimately gives you your benefits. That is what leads to a successful project. So
thanks, Divi. So we're just going to wrap up here and then get into our question and answer session. And there have been a couple of questions that have come through. So just a reminder that OSI Consulting is a global professional services firm founded back in 1993, and we're an Oracle Platinum partner. And we've been in business for over 24 years with over 1,400 professionals globally. So let's take a look at our question and answer session. Divi, do you want to move up one more slide here, and then we'll get started. And once again, just as Divi was mentioning, if you have any interest in a discussion around what you heard today, including what Divi talked about with our EBS to ERP Cloud assessment, feel free to contact us. We have a couple of different ways of doing that. You can go to our website and go to the Contact Us page. We're very responsive to get back in touch with you, or you can send an email to the information you see on screen, info@OSI.US, or the phone number available. So with that, let's get started with our Q&A session. Divi, there have been a couple of questions that came through from for earlier on in the presentation. And our first question comes from Barb, and she was curious if we know the status of EAM, Enterprise Asset Management module, being an Oracle's cloud application. Can you speak to that?
Yes, EAM is being made available in the cloud, and it has come in. It's come in, I think, in release 11. We have not done an EAM implementation out there anywhere in the cloud anywhere. We have only done on-prem. So unfortunately, I cannot speak to the readiness of it, but I know the asset management in the cloud is available since release 11 by Oracle. So which is, I would say, about a year back.
Okay, great. And then we had another question that came from Hugo. He was wondering if we have a suggestion for companies with subsidiaries in Latin America that still run 11i or 12.1, what our suggestion would be for setting themselves up for success.
So for Latin America, I know that Oracle's recently releasing the localizations for Latin America and for Asia on the cloud. Again, we have not implemented cloud in Latin America, but the localizations have been made available by Oracle, I think a few months back, on the financials and procurement modules. So I think if there are subsidiaries, if they are not on EBS or they are on earlier versions of EBS, if they do want to migrate, we could very easily go to an on-prem model, on-prem and cloud hybrid model, where maybe we do one subsidiary at a time and move just one subsidiary to the cloud and have the interfaces into EBS. We've done this at other places. We've just moved one site to the cloud and have it interfaced to EBS on the financial side. So depending on the footprint of that subsidiary, we could decide what is the module footprint on the cloud and accordingly build the interfaces.
Okay, wonderful. So we had a couple more questions coming in, but our next question is from Anatoly, and he's wondering if Oracle's planning to develop conversion interface from on-prem to their cloud ERP or on-prem or rather cloud ERP system.
So Oracle does not provide, there is a conversion interface which is an Excel file or a file-based data import available. There is no automated Oracle Cloud interface, EBS to ERP Cloud interface available where they automatically take data out of EBS and move it to the cloud. But OSI has developed, since we have done a couple of these projects, we have developed the requisite tools and templates, and we would almost seamlessly be able to pick up your EBS data and move it to the cloud. Unless you were trying to do some data manipulation in between, moving from EBS to the cloud for major master item data, we can do that pretty seamlessly.
Okay, great. And then Suresh was wondering, what are the options available to get data out of Oracle's cloud for custom reporting?
That's actually a good question. Oracle does not allow you backend access into their cloud instance, so you can't write your own SQL queries to pull data out. However, every time you want to pull data out that's not available to you in OTBI, you can create an SR and tell Oracle what are the columns that you need, and they pretty much have a one-day turnaround on this. We have seen they will develop that query and provide that to you. You can incorporate that into a scheduled program that you run, or you can run the query through a scheduled program in the front end and pull that data out. So it's not as easy as just calling a developer and asking them to write it. You have to create an SR, but you can get pretty much what you need through the SR.
Okay, great. Then we had another question from Mangesh. How do you think Oracle's acquisition of NetSuite changes the cloud offerings for an ERP solution from Oracle?
I think that's a question a lot of Oracle people are also talking about internally. I've heard Oracle's not been public about how they want to structure it, but from what I've heard at a very high level, they want to have they are going to obviously keep NetSuite around, and they will also keep ERP Cloud around. The ERP Cloud will be targeted more towards the larger user base. So if you are using EBS, I think if they wanted to convert you to a cloud application, they would target ERP Cloud for you, and the NetSuite would be to the smaller user base. Now, where that they actually draw the line as to what is small and what is large, I'm not sure exactly, but that's what I think the overall direction is: NetSuite for the smaller organizations and ERP Cloud to the larger enterprise organizations.
Okay, great. And it certainly seems that Oracle reinvents the small and large business line each year, so it'll be interesting to see. Another question from Scott here is he's wondering if there's a list of functionality that is available in EBS but not in the cloud. That's a great question.
That's a good question. I don't have a list that calls out things that are not there in the cloud. I do have a list on equivalent functionality from EBS to cloud. We have done our analyses on that on the financials as well as on the supply chain. I'm sure there are specific things that we can find that are in EBS and not in cloud, and even the other way around, things that are in cloud that were not in EBS. But I don't have that kind of an exclusivity list with me. I mean, if it needs, usually we do that as in the course of an assessment, because EBS has so much functionality that trying to get that comprehensive a list is going to be really almost a fool's errand in some way. So we would rather focus on what is being used in EBS by a current implementation, and which of that functionality maps to equivalent functionality in the cloud or is not available in the cloud. That's the way we typically approach that question.
Excellent. Okay, now we have a two-part question from Dattatri. We have a third party, they have a third-party solution for imaging, mainly for invoices. Do they have a solution for imaging in the cloud?
Yes, Oracle does have a solution for imaging in the cloud for AP invoices, and the way it works is you have an email address that you ask your suppliers to email their PDF invoices to, and then that comes into you as a feed. Once those invoices get into that email ID, they get converted into a file that can be fed into ERP Cloud, and that comes to you in your instance, which you can then import in as invoices. So there is this whole email and import process that Oracle has that's ready-made, and you can buy that along with your procurement license. And that works pretty well, actually. We have implemented it in a couple of places. It's called AP invoice imaging.
Okay, great. And then the part two, the Dattatry's question is, and how does backup recovery and disaster recovery, how does that work in the cloud?
Basically, it does not. You don't have to worry about it. As per Oracle, that is totally their responsibility. I'm not sure how Oracle's doing it. I'm pretty sure they must be having multiple data centers for disaster recovery. But you basically buy either 2 or 3 instances, whatever you're paying for, your prod, dev, and test, or just prod and test. And Oracle is contracted contractually to maintain those applications, those instances, and make sure that they are available to you. So disaster recovery is not your problem at all. It is Oracle's problem in backups and disaster recovery. You can ask for clones, and there is they have a timeline. I think there is a standard clone is a 2-week notice period if you want to clone from prod to test, for example. Or you can set up predefined refresh cycles. But disaster recovery is not your problem. Okay,
good. Okay, so it looks like we had a few more questions come through here. First one being from Suresh. Does Oracle Cloud have any APIs and web services to communicate to external applications, given that it's quite a diverse ecosystem that we work with?
Yes, there are APIs available for bringing in data, and there are web services available too. So an example would be GTM, which is a cloud application. As I said, we interfaced it as a point-to-point interface with EBS, and it was done through web services available in the cloud. So every cloud module comes with its own set of APIs and web services. Okay,
great. And then looks like we had another question come through from Dave, and it was kind of a follow-on of Dattatry's question. Does Oracle maintain a list of all their certified third-party apps, and if any, that help extend their cloud? For example, a tax engine or CPQ?
Yeah, there is a list. I mean, if you go to the Oracle website, the products list, it does. So tax engine and CPQ is, of course, they are Oracle products, so they are listed in Oracle's database. In addition, Oracle has a marketplace, and if you go in as an Oracle customer and log into the Oracle portal, there is a cloud marketplace where they maintain a list of applications that are certified to work with the cloud. I mean, they're definitely certified. There is one that works with EBS, and they have one that works with the cloud as well.
Okay, great. Looks like we had another one come through from Jay. Do localizations like India, for example, do they exist on the cloud? In this particular example, they have a subsidiary in India.
Yeah, there are, depending on what localizations you're looking for, we have done some implementations in India as well, and there are localizations available both on the HCM side as well as on the procurement side. The way Oracle's working, I believe, is any localizations they're first rolling out to EBS, and then planning to roll it out on the cloud. So as an example, Oracle's rolling out GST localization because India is implementing GST, so Oracle's rolling that out to EBS right now. And the plan is that a few months down the line, it will be available to the cloud. So yeah, to answer the question, India localizations are available on the cloud.
Okay. So I'm gonna allow 2 more questions since we've had quite a few come through, and then any questions we see after the fact, we will follow up with you to provide an answer. So we're going to get 2 more questions in here. We've hit the top of our hour, but due to the number of questions coming through, I think it'd be prudent to let just a few more through here. So the next question comes from Roland, and he wants to know how you go about setting up a test instance on the cloud. Do you request them from Oracle, or how do you get them refreshed? Do you just need to request as needed? What does that look like? Can you talk about that, Dibby?
Yeah, so when you buy the cloud, you basically have to buy a minimum of 2 instances, a production instance and a test instance. You could buy 3 if you wanted. And how often you refresh them is entirely up to you. Oracle will do the refresh for you, but you can tell them the periodicity. Either you set it up as a regular refresh or it's on-demand refresh. They have a defined timeline. I think usually they ask for a 2-week notice for a refresh, but for one-off situations where there is urgent code that needs to be tested and you need to replicate prod into test, they will do it even over a weekend or things like that. But essentially it's on demand. You can request as many refreshes as you like.
Okay, great. And our last question comes from Mangesh. For instances that are heavily customized, do you think that going to the cloud is an option? Say 80% or more, they have, out of their total instance, they have, say, around more than 80% customization.
It'll be hard to, I would not definitely plan to move all those customizations across to the cloud because maintaining it will be hell after that. As I said before, you have to do a customization analysis and see which ones of them are absolutely required and which ones of them you can replace by changing the business process and going with a more standard business process. And when you do a cost-benefit analysis, for example, this is all relative, right? So, for example, I'm just throwing out numbers there. Let's say you look at the whole thing and you see your company saving $1 million a year by moving to the cloud. And in the process, you have to get rid of 4 or 5 major customizations. It's an executive management decision on whether it's worth the while, whether $1 million a year is worth the pain that the organization may go through in the short term by going to a standard business process. So there is no simple answer to this, I know. It's totally a case by case, but that is the kind of analysis that needs to be done before you make that decision.
Okay. Now we still have more questions coming through, but I think we're going to wrap up here. We don't want to run too far over our time that we've set up. If you do have additional questions, we're going to leave the WebEx up, and please type them into the chat, get any questions you have in, and we will be following up with you with answers that Dibby will review them and put together an answer for you so we make sure we get back to you. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us. If you are interested in the discussion beyond this, feel free to contact us using the information on screen. And once again, if you have questions, we'll leave this up for a little bit and we can offer to follow up with you on those questions. So thanks again. Take care, everyone.